This video is a response to questions from several friends about the interpretation of Robert M. Sapolsky's determined. Here are our responses for your reference. Question 1. It's impossible to successfully will yourself to have willpower. If understood precisely, does this mean it's impossible to instantly boost your willpower using willpower in the moment? However, in the long term, can you demand yourself to do willpower training, similar to training muscles, and gradually increase your willpower? Answer. We can think of willpower as a type of muscle strength. You can't magically gain strength at will, but some studies suggest that you can indeed improve willpower through exercise. There are various methodologies for willpower, and we need to differentiate whether a method reasonably applies willpower, avoids it, or genuinely strengthens it. For instance, when fatigued, hungry, in pain, or under stress, willpower may falter due to insufficient blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, also PFC. So, if you have a crucial decision, it's reasonable to wait until your brain is in a better state, which is a rational use of willpower. Many books now recommend replacing willpower with habits. Automatically going to bed or running when it's time, making choices based on a preset identity, I am a good person, without bargaining with yourself, this showcases a disciplined person. However, you're not really strictly demanding yourself. You formed good habits, bypassing the need for willpower. This is willpower avoidance. True willpower enhancement is when you're tired, hungry, and sleepy, facing a sudden new situation. Under intense pressure, you can still think calmly, assess options rationally, and make the right choices. This requires some serious effort, strengthening your PFC. Sapolsky didn't specify how to train, but I found two methods in my research. One is aerobic exercise. Superagers, older individuals with youthful minds and unshrunken brains, are those who regularly exercise. Not all exercises are effective. For the brain, you need cardiovascular exercise with intensity. A study in 2006 found that 3 times a week, 1 hour each session of moderate-intensity aerobic exercise, consistently done for 6 months, significantly increased brain volume in people over 60. Both gray and white matter volumes increased, especially in the prefrontal and parietal regions responsible for cognitive functions. In contrast, stretching exercises had no effect on the brain. The exercise intensity started with warm-ups at 40% to 50% of the maximum heart rate, gradually increasing to 60% to 70%, corresponding to what we previously called moderate-intensity aerobic exercise, like a slightly breathless jog. This is likely because increased cardiovascular flow enhances blood supply to the brain, indicating that inadequate cerebral blood supply is a significant issue in the elderly. If you're of a certain age and feel less sharp, get tired reading, or feel mentally fatigued, don't give up, you can exercise. However, for younger individuals, the study didn't find an effect of aerobic exercise on brain volume. Perhaps because their cerebral blood supply is already sufficient. Young people's issue is not a lack of energy but an excess of emotional energy, which needs the PFC to control effectively. For this, you might be more suited to the second method, mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness allows you to carefully experience, balance, and even deconstruct various inner feelings, preventing any emotion from controlling you and gaining control. A Harvard study in 2005 found that the thickness, folds, and overall surface area of the left PFC increased significantly in long-term meditators. The more meditation, the stronger the effect. A 2013 study using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, again confirmed this. 8 weeks of meditation training increased the thickness of the PFC. However, the study also made a more interesting discovery. The amygdala in the brains of meditators, responsible for generating fear and triggering the fight or flight response in the face of stress, seemed to shrink slightly. More importantly, the connection between the amygdala and some parts of the brain weakened, while the connection with the PFC strengthened. I understand this to mean that for meditators, fear becomes more of a reminder than a control. The PFC of meditators can communicate better with the amygdala. If the amygdala is the scout sent out to investigate danger, and the PFC is the commander, this situation is like improved communication between the commander and the scout, fostering mutual understanding. This prevents the scout from causing panic in the entire brain upon detecting the slightest movement. This is indeed an ideal scenario. Question 2. The ideas in the book seem similar to mechanical determinism. What are the differences between them? Answer. Yes, the idea of no free will is equivalent to absolute mechanical determinism. Mechanical determinism has been around since Newton, facing criticism but never truly refuted. Let's briefly review the human understanding of this concept and appreciate the progress of mechanical determinism. Precisely interpreting others' intentions is a crucial social skill for humans. Our brains strongly support us in learning this ability, leading us to overuse it, even believing that everything has a spirit. Why is it raining today? Because the heavens wanted it to rain. Why did this tree bloom? Because it wanted to bloom in spring. We used to think all changes in the world were caused by some form of free will. Hence, ancient people worshipped imagined deities in nature. Later, monotheism replaced polytheism, asserting that everything is God's plan, still an explanation based on free will. Newton changed this perspective. He provided mathematical formulas, saying, "Look, the movement of everything conforms to my laws. That stone will fall, precisely following my formula for speed and change. Where is there any free will in this?" This is mechanical determinism. The movement of things is determined by some inevitable laws, not someone's intention. No additional intent is required here. However, Newton's formulas only described the physical world, not biological issues, leaving a gap for free will, also for God. People could argue, well, I can't decide how the stone moves after I throw it, I can decide how I throw it. The stone has no free will, but I do. Although many scholars believe humans should fully accept the control of physical laws, philosophers like Kant argue that a gap for free will should remain. This is because Kant's moral philosophy assumes that humans have free will. While I have various biological inclinations, my choice to act according to moral principles is my free will. As Sapolsky argues in the book, if humans have no free will, they lack moral responsibility. So, you might ask, does Kant oppose physics? No. Kant accepts physics, but believes it cannot describe the entire world, it cannot describe the thing in itself. Thus, Kant is consistent. If the thing in itself cannot be fully described, the existence of free will, unrestricted by physical laws, is not surprising. After reading Sapolsky's book, I conclude that all doctrines believing in the existence of free will are, in a sense, a form of theism. Just as in the traditional relationship between theism and atheism. Theists bear the burden of proving God's existence, while atheists don't need to prove the absence of God, because logically, even if you eliminate all observable influences, you cannot convince others that there is no God left. Question 3. Why doesn't having genuine randomness imply free will? If things are truly random, doesn't it mean the future is unpredictable, and physical laws can't plan the direction of randomness? For instance, whether I choose KFC or McDonald's for lunch today, I should be in control, right? Even if each choice isn't made by free will, the day I get tired of one and decide to switch is still my decision, isn't it? Answer. Current quantum theory affirms universal genuine randomness in the world, something not even determined by physical laws. Currently explained using the concept of parallel universes. For instance, whether an electron hits the left or right side of a screen, or if a radioactive atom will decay in the next minute. This isn't just unpredictability. It's absolute uncertainty. Yet, this still isn't free will, because you can't control quantum randomness. If, at every decision point in life, you decide like rolling dice, odd for rice, even for noodles, can this be called free will? Certainly not. It's a completely passive choice, a total abandonment of will. Now, you might wonder if there's a possibility I could use the inherent uncertainty in my mind to make decisions without relying on external random systems. Currently, there's no evidence that quantum processes affect brain decisions, but the brain is a complex system influenced by chaos and emergent phenomena. Chaos and emergence are deterministic, but unpredictable. Consider this. I'm facing the choice between McDonald's and KFC. If I'm genuinely indifferent between them at this moment, thinking either is fine, and decide randomly, say, I think about McDonald's and KFC, and finally choose McDonald's for no apparent reason. If you inquire about the physical process of this decision, I can only say it's the chaotic behavior of my brain's neurons. Is this free will? Sapolsky would say no. In his book, he discusses chaos and emergence, arguing that their outcomes are both uncontrollable, so it's not your will, and it's a result of our biological constraints. You might be calm about the decision because, for you, there's no real difference between McDonald's and KFC. But for someone who's tired of McDonald's, KFC might be a clearly better option. Sapolsky also suggests that even if the human brain has true randomness, you wouldn't want it because you don't want random rewards and punishments. In physics, you lack free will, but in biology, yes, choosing McDonald's in this scenario is your free will. Because I can't see any biological reason for you not to choose KFC. However, Sapolsky refuses to acknowledge this as free will, possibly because his concept of free will requires moral responsibility, and here, your choice between McDonald's and KFC is irrelevant to moral responsibility. In fact, current generative AI outputs also exhibit some randomness. Ask ChatGPT the same question multiple times, and its answers will not be identical. Can we say ChatGPT has free will? In a physics sense of free will, as long as the computer running ChatGPT doesn't use radioactive material as a random number generator, it lacks free will. Its outputs are still entirely computed. In a biologically explainable free will sense, there's some room for free will. In a moral responsibility requiring free will sense, there isn't. ChatGPT has undergone strict training, and it's not allowed to freely generate responses. In conclusion, Sapolsky's point in writing the book seems to be denying free will in a biological sense, but in addressing chaos, he inevitably returns to a definition of free will rooted in physics.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.